some of the toughest spots you found yourself in life that you wouldn't change because they brought so much value to who you are today?
Toughest spots in life. Well, when I was starting out in poker, I had some downswings, and that was tough. I was always really afraid because, like, everyone in my life kind of thought I was like a crazy person, like a madman, for trying to be a gambler. I don't know why.
That's okay.
Getting emotional, losing in the poker game too, but I was really afraid of failing, of not making it, and I think that really drove me to succeed.
What was it about that moment then that just clicked?
Actually, I remember a moment I was losing in poker, and I had probably lost like half of my bankroll. I probably had like $50,000 or $60,000 left. I was like, oh man, I might have to go back to school. Like, everyone's gonna tell me I told you so. I was sitting in an airport. I was flying to see Phil Galfond, who's a good friend of mine. He lived in another state. I remember having like an anxiety attack in the airport, like worrying about this. And that had never happened to me before. And then, I went to see Phil, and at the time he was a much, much more talented player than me. And I just watched him play for a week. And I kind of just saw, okay, like, I still know how to do this, I still know how to play. So I was watching him play like the biggest games at the time. And sometimes he would like think of things, wouldn't think of a way to play the hand. And I'd tell him and he'd be like, oh yeah, that's the correct way to play. So that helped build my confidence in my poker game.
It seems like poker is very important here in terms of emotional context, but
Yeah.
is there also, you mentioned that I would be proving them right, or you said something like that. Is there an external factor here as well?
Oh, for sure. I mean, poker was just my tool or my vehicle to kind of prove to myself I was enough, that I could do, things that everyone doubted I could do.
Who are those doubters?
I mean, it wasn't really doubters, I think people around you just want like the best for you, and they kind of have their own preconceived notion or their own beliefs just about life, like what you have to do to succeed or be happy. And so, I mean, all of my friends and family thought, I was crazy, because this is when poker was first kind of starting and first growing as a sport and growing in culture. So like, when maybe people still think of gamblers this way, but definitely back then they thought any gambler was like, a crazy person who was gonna lose their house and become addicted to drugs and ruin their life.
I left school at 16 with no education, and I ended up working in the British railway system. And for the next 20 years, I got close to becoming managing director. And then I stopped drinking alcohol. And I woke up one morning and thought, what am I going to work for? Why am I doing this? Yeah. And I told everyone I was going to quit. And everyone thought I was nuts. And nobody would support me. Everybody just wanted me to do what they wanted to do. I think because they wanted to protect me. And it was very lonely, and I felt really misunderstood.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I think part of it is a lot of people, like, you'll be around whatever group you're around, and you're all on the same path, right? You kind of all have the same values and outlook on life. And then if someone gets a new idea or a new outlook that's different, from the groups, like one that scares people because it makes them start to question, are they making the right choices in life? Is that really what they want to do? So I think that's where some of it comes from.
It's like you're holding a mirror up.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They don't want to see the reflection.
Yeah, and like, yeah, exactly.
And what are some of those values that are really important to you in life that guide you?
Well, I've changed a lot as a person since I first started playing poker, but I think, the main driving force back then was I really wanted freedom. I wanted freedom to do whatever I wanted. Didn't want to have to listen to anyone or take orders from anyone. And then at the same time, it was also fear of failure. And those two things are kind of what propelled me to succeed at poker and get better at poker.
It seems like the fear of failure is like a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah. Or no, I think it's something, you know, there's values that can serve you at certain times in your life. You know, and for me, when I started out, that was a great motivator because I never would have, you know, worked as hard as I did. And, you know, without that, but I think at different points in life, you know, there's times to let everything go. Because I know people, some people who are billionaires, you know, who are older, and they still have that fear of failure, and they can't really, you know, enjoy life because that's their primary emotion. Even though they've achieved so much, they're always afraid someone else is going to be achieving more. So maybe that served them when they were young, but now perhaps it doesn't serve them anymore.
It's almost like we need to find, instead of pressing a button to get rid of that fear of failure, we need to find a dial. Dial it down because we need it,
Yeah.
but we don't want it to go out of control because it can have an adverse effect on our life.
Yeah, no, I think that's very wise of you to say. And I think it's just like kind of like changing what your definition of a failure is.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like some people might think they're a failure if they have a losing day at poker and as a poker player. And that's probably not a very healthy belief because you're going to have a lot of losing days. And if you're always beating yourself up whenever that happens, you're not going to have a very happy life. I am Andrew Robl, and I am High Stakes Poker.